Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, where we take the vast landscape of future trends and, well, try to give you a clear map. We are diving into a week of really intense global change. A week where the theoretical promise of technological abundance has suddenly become a very concrete reality, and more importantly, a serious policy challenge that demands, immediate attention.
What's so fascinating here is just how quickly the theoretical became tangible. The research compiled by our dedicated research team, it shows this huge structural shift. AI is moving so rapidly from being, just a competitive advantage for a few companies to becoming the central nervous system for entire national economies.
The conversation has completely shifted.
Completely. We are no longer debating if society changes because of this tech. The question now is how fast can we adapt to this new era of, tech-driven abundance? And that really is the defining challenge of our time.
That's right. So the mission for Tomorrow Unveiled today is pretty straightforward. We need to unpack this dense collection of source material our team pulled together, specifically on how this technology, particularly advanced AI, is reshaping the three big pillars of modern life: work, education, and the global economy.
And our focus is laser sharp.
Exactly. We are looking only for the patterns, the corroborated facts, and the really startling implications that speak directly to you, whether you're running a business, managing a career, or, just trying to navigate all this rapid change.
And when you look across the entire body of research, a few core themes just jump out. They're confirmed across all the sources. There are three, and they're all highly interconnected. First, AI is fundamentally reshaping over half of all cognitive work. And that creates this volatile mix of augmentation for some workers, but structural displacement for others.
Okay, so that's the first one, work.
Second, global powers are locked in this intense, resource-hungry race to build the physical infrastructure needed for this next generation of AI. They're treating it like a new national security imperative.
It's an industrial policy race.
Precisely. And third, our education systems and our social safety nets are desperately scrambling to adapt to the velocity of this change before systemic crises erupt.
That speed, that velocity you mentioned, that's what makes this moment feel so unique. It's not a gentle evolution. It's a seismic, immediate shift. So we need to start right where this abundance touches everyone most directly: the economy, the workplace. Let's jump straight into section 1, the agentic disruption, where we look at how AI is actively redefining the future of work. Let's start with the cold, hard numbers on the sheer scale of technical replaceability.
Yeah, and the research confirms that the AI we have right now today is already capable of altering or replacing a really significant portion of labor.
And when we talk about massive scale here, we really mean it.
The data points are genuinely striking. They move way beyond just theoretical capacity. According to one major analysis, AI is technically capable of automating or assisting in a staggering 57% of U.S. work hours.
57%. That's wow.
Yeah. Now, this part is crucial. That 57% reflects the technical potential, meaning if these AI agents were fully deployed today, they could handle nearly 3/5 of the manual and cognitive tasks humans currently perform.
That statistic alone, it forces a fundamental rethink of what work even means.
It does. But, as we've seen in the source material, the McKinsey Global Institute analysis frames this very carefully. It's not just pure replacement. They see it more as a potential partnership.
A partnership? How so?
Well, their report estimates that autonomous agents, robots, they could automate about 44% of work hours. But they emphasize that for a majority of professional roles, the human worker is being augmented. Their output is amplified rather than them being strictly substituted.
Okay, so that distinction between augmentation and substitution is key.
It is, but the sheer volume of tasks being fundamentally affected is just undeniable.
It absolutely is. But to put a more precise economic number on the immediate risk, the risk that companies can currently afford to take right now.
Right, the commercially viable part.
Exactly. The research team highlighted what they call the Iceberg Index, which is critical for policy planning.
And this index gives a much clearer picture of economic replaceability today, not 5 years from now.
And the number?
The precise number is that 11.7% of the U.S. workforce is currently economically replaceable by existing AI tools.
Okay, so what does economically replaceable actually mean in this context?
It means the technology is cheap enough and it's reliable enough that replacing those human hours makes immediate financial sense for the company right now.
11.7%. That is a concrete number. It represents millions of workers.
Millions. And it amounts to roughly $1.2 trillion in wages that are currently at risk.
And where is this disruption hitting the hardest? Is it consistent across the board?
The research is incredibly consistent on this. It's finance, healthcare, and professional services, the white-collar cognitive roles that so many people once believed were, totally immune to automation.
And this is the central structural difference, isn't it, between this technological shift and previous industrial revolutions?
It really is. Past automation, like mechanization, it targeted physical, repetitive labor, factory work, farm work.
Right.
Now, AI is targeting cognitive, repetitive labor, tasks that involve complex data processing, basic document generation, internal analysis, quality assurance based on pattern recognition.
All the stuff we thought was safe.
Exactly. And the data shows this shift is already guiding proactive policy planning. Several U.S. states, Tennessee, Utah, North Carolina, they're using this exact index to plan regional investment, target worker retraining, and prepare for potential tax-based volatility.
This is why we have to talk about that tension between augmentation and substitution, because for years we heard this comforting mantra, AI will help us, not hurt us.
Right.
It's a tool. It's just a tool. But the research shows the abstract warnings about job losses are fast becoming concrete reality. It seems like the balance is tipping firmly towards substitution in specific corporate sectors.
And the clearest, most concrete example of this is the case study on Hewlett-Packard, or HP. The company announced plans to cut between 4,000 to 6,000 jobs by 2028. And they explicitly attributed this massive restructuring to its AI transformation push and embedding AI into their internal operations.
That is a stunning admission.
It is.
It confirms a critical economic trend that economists have been warning about for years, the decoupling of revenue growth from human headcount.
Exactly. Traditionally, if a huge company like HP grew its sales, it needed to hire more people to manage the complexity.
But not anymore.
Now, the plan is to grow output and complexity while actively reducing labor costs. They are capturing the efficiency gains not as labor productivity, but as pure profit margins for shareholders. It signals a whole new era of corporate efficiency.
And HP isn't an outlier here, it's a bellwether.
It's a structural bellwether. Our research indicates job cuts are happening across major corporations, Amazon, IBM, Apple, and they're all in the areas most exposed to this kind of basic cognitive automation: customer service, quality assurance engineering, internal operations.
The back office.
An entire back office. We are entering what some of the source material calls the Agentic era of corporate restructuring, where autonomous AI agents replace entire operational layers. It turns cost-cutting from a reactive move into a proactive, technology-driven strategy.
So if those operational and, repetitive cognitive jobs are disappearing, what exactly is emerging to take their place?
Well, this dramatic shift brings us to the emergence of new roles and, of course, the accompanying skill gaps we're seeing across the economy.
And the speed of this demand shift is just incredible. The data really backs it up.
It does. The essential need for what's being called AI fluency, the ability to effectively work alongside, manage, and audit AI tools. That need has risen sevenfold in the last 2 years.
Sevenfold.
Sevenfold. It is by far the fastest growing skill requirement tracked in U.S. job postings, which just highlights the urgency for both employers and workers to adapt their core capabilities.
This movement away from execution and toward governance, it's best crystallized in this fascinating new job profile detailed by our research team, the AI Orchestrator.
Yeah.
It sounds like a title from a cyberpunk novel, but what does this human role actually do in a 2024 workplace?
The AI Orchestrator is essentially the human conductor of a digital fleet. As AI agents take over these complex end-to-end workflows, everything from processing a complex financial insurance claim to providing internal tech support, the human role shifts entirely to governance and supervision.
So what does that mean day to day?
It means they're responsible for setting the high-level business goals for the agents, managing the inherent risk of, cascading failures when one agent's output feeds into another, ensuring strict regulatory compliance, and providing that final necessary layer of ethical oversight before a major decision is executed. It is a supervisory, high-stakes role over increasingly autonomous digital subordinates.
That makes perfect sense. The human role becomes less about the tedious, repetitive doing, and much more about the high-level managing, auditing, and verifying the machine's output.
Precisely.
But if the goal is to shift the entire workforce into these higher-level orchestration roles, the biggest structural challenge here, according to the research, is the sheer capacity for mass retraining. Can we actually move people up the value chain fast enough?
And this is where a sobering finding from the World Economic Forum becomes a really significant warning flag. While the data shows 85% of employers globally plan to invest heavily to upskill their existing workforce, which sounds optimistic.
Very optimistic.
Right, but they simultaneously estimate that 11% of the current workforce is unlikely to receive the necessary retraining required to keep up.
That is a harsh term to see in a policy document. Unlikely to receive the necessary retraining. Why are they considered unreskillable?
Well, the analysis suggests a few converging factors that create this class of stranded workers. It often involves workers whose skills are so specialized and obsolete, maybe in legacy manufacturing or low-level administration. The cost of retraining them into, say, an AI orchestrator is seen by the employer as having a negative return on investment.
And geography is a major factor, too.
A huge factor. Many of these workers live in regions without access to sophisticated training centers, or even just high-speed internet. Age, existing education levels, they also contribute. And this creates a looming social crisis. Structural, long-term unemployment and a lack of meaning right alongside booming national productivity. This is the central, unavoidable paradox of technological abundance.
This paradox of abundance, constrained by structural failures, it leads us directly to our second section. You can't run billions of autonomous AI agents and supercharge scientific discovery without the physical infrastructure to support them.
Exactly. The abundance of digital intelligence is fundamentally constrained by the scarcity of energy, hardware, and raw materials.
And this is where it's no longer just a software race driven by Silicon Valley coders. It is fundamentally morphed into an industrial policy race driven by national governments.
That's the absolute core shift highlighted across all the sources. The research confirms that AI isn't just a commercial tool anymore. It has become central to national sovereignty, geopolitical competition, and national security planning.
A great example of that is in the U.S. with what's been named the Genesis mission.
Yeah, that initiative is huge. This new executive order is explicitly modeled on the ambition, the urgency, and the resource allocation of the original Manhattan Project.
Right.
It mandates a structural reorganization of the entire federal scientific apparatus to integrate powerful supercomputers and cutting-edge AI models directly into physical research labs across the country.
And the explicit focus of this Genesis mission is really revealing, isn't it?
It is. It's not just about creating the next great chatbot for public use. It's about using AI to dramatically compress scientific discovery times, specifically targeting breakthroughs in foundational areas like nuclear fusion, advanced material science, and, crucially, grid optimization.
So it's binding advanced AI to the physical world.
Exactly. Viewing compute power as an essential energy and national security asset that has to be secured and expanded rapidly.
And this resulting Energy-Compute Nexus is quickly becoming the defining feature of this whole industrial growth phase.
It really is. The research is clear. The single biggest, most immediate bottleneck for AI growth is electric power.
I've seen some of these numbers. They're wild.
A single large-scale data center can now consume the energy equivalent of a small American city.
Yeah.
We're talking tens, even hundreds of megawatts, 247.
Wow.
This overwhelming demand is why the research highlights the intense U.S. policy focus on achieving energy dominance to support this AI build-out and the aggressive push for regulatory fast-tracking.
That deregulation push includes what our research team calls gold permits, a specialized regulatory approach to fast-track data center and power plant construction.
Right. And these permits sometimes bypass or override typical state and local environmental or zoning regulations to speed up deployment. The objective is clearly to ensure the electrons keep flowing to the GPUs.
Even if it creates constitutional clashes over federal versus state regulatory authority.
And the scale of this infrastructure need is leading to some truly historic and unexpected decisions. One fascinating detail unearthed by the research involves the reindustrialization of the Rust Belt.
How so?
Specifically, the historic restart of the Palisades nuclear plant in Michigan, which had been retired.
They're bringing a nuclear plant back online.
They are, and this restart is explicitly linked to providing reliable, always-on, carbon-free power for the AI economy. It suggests a physical, industrial, policy-driven renaissance of legacy energy zones based solely on their compute and energy potential.
So the high-value jobs of the future in Michigan are shifting from, say, traditional manufacturing to nuclear engineering and grid management.
Rapidly.
Okay, so that's the U.S. strategy, scientific compression, massive compute integration. But the research also reveals a fascinating contrast when we look at global competition, particularly China's approach to physical automation.
You see a very clear difference in strategic focus. While the U.S. is heavily focused on generative science and national labs, China is aggressively accelerating the deployment of humanoid robots-embodied AI into its massive manufacturing heartlands.
We're seeing these advanced robots in places like the Zeekr EV factories.
Exactly, performing increasingly complex and varied assembly tasks that, until very recently, required human dexterity.
And this isn't just about simple efficiency gains for them. It's a strategic defensive necessity for Beijing, isn't it?
It's driven by demographic reality. China's workforce is shrinking and aging at an alarming rate, and that poses an existential threat to its status as the world's manufacturing superpower.
So they're future-proofing.
They're trying to future-proof their manufacturing base against population decline by replacing a shrinking human workforce with a synthetic, tireless one. This state-led strategy is a massive commitment of capital and political will.
The scale of this global compute arms race is just staggering. And it's not just government spending this money. We have to look at the private capital deployment, which confirms the depth of this demand.
The numbers are astronomical. They confirm that the demand for foundational computing resources is so large that no single cloud provider can handle it. Take Amazon. They announced a massive multi-year $50 billion investment dedicated specifically to expanding AI infrastructure just for U.S. government agencies.
$50 billion.
They're basically building a parallel, highly secure classified internet just to run the state's most sensitive foundation models.
And then there's that reported $38 billion deal between OpenAI and Amazon. I mean, that's maybe the ultimate commercial proof of this insatiable demand for chips and power.
That particular deal just shatters the old assumption that OpenAI was exclusively tied to Microsoft's infrastructure. The sheer necessity for the maker of ChatGPT to diversify its compute infrastructure to access NVIDIA chips through another cloud provider.
Through Amazon.
It confirms that the scarcity of infrastructure, primarily power and GPUs, is the #1 constraint on the growth of intelligence right now. These companies are consuming every available electron and every manufactured GPU chip on the planet.
Now, in stark contrast to this aggressive, capital-intensive build-out in the U.S. and China, we have Europe's response, which the research critically characterizes as a kind of regulatory retreat.
This is a crucial and really fascinating finding. It shows how economic fear can quickly override political idealism. Faced with a widening productivity gap, economic stagnation, and the threat of capital flight to the U.S., the European Commission is effectively hitting the pause button. They've unveiled a proposal to significantly delay enforcement of key AI Act rules for certain high-risk systems until late 2027.
And they're also simplifying the rules around data usage for training, right? It's an attempt to grease the wheels for their own AI innovators.
Precisely. They're simplifying certain GDPR requirements to allow for easier, less restrictive use of data in AI training. This regulatory rollback is a clear, if tacit, admission that Europe's initial ambitious strategy, which was trying to export its precautionary regulatory model globally.
It backfired.
It backfired, ironically, by potentially stifling their own domestic innovation.
Right.
They are now explicitly deprioritizing certain aspects of digital rights in favor of achieving digital competitiveness. The fear of long-term economic irrelevance has, for now, overridden their commitment to precautionary ethics.
We've established this structural shift is happening at the level of global infrastructure and multi-billion-dollar corporate strategy. But for those of us not building data centers, the immediate question is, how does this affect the next generation, the ones currently in school? When Tomorrow Unveiled returns, we're going to dive into how classrooms are being radically re-engineered for the AI era. We hope you're finding this deep dive incredibly insightful on Tomorrow Unveiled. If you're currently watching us on YouTube, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, and consider hitting that new hype button to help us reach more viewers. And of course, be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the future. We love hearing your thoughts. Whether you're on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about how this rapid AI acceleration is impacting your life and your job. Specifically, have you seen the rise of the AI orchestrator yet? We thrive on your engagement. Welcome back to Tomorrow Unveiled. We now turn our attention to the second pillar of society being radically reshaped by agentic AI education.
And the research compiled by our dedicated research team suggests that education systems worldwide are fundamentally shifting their focus away from, the historical industrial age goal of rote memorization. The new priority is increasingly on developing sophisticated critical thinking and the skill of asking the right questions.
This transformation is immediate and it's critical because today's students are tomorrow's AI orchestrators.
Exactly. They need to manage information and systems, not just regurgitate facts.
Right.
And in K-12 integration, we're seeing the launch of specialized tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT for teachers.
Right, this is a big deal for educators.
It's essentially a free, secure, and compliance-aware workspace designed specifically to help them. It can tailor curricula to individual student needs and massively streamline time-consuming administrative tasks like grading and paperwork. It's currently being piloted in large U.S. school systems, like Prince William County Schools in Virginia.
That represents a massive philosophical shift in the classroom.
It really does.
It means the teacher isn't spending hours generating standardized lesson plans. The AI handles the logistics and personalization, freeing the human teacher to focus on mentoring, emotional support, and facilitating complex problem solving.
It's AI as an amplifier of the human role in education.
And this shift isn't just restricted to Western models.
Not at all. Our research highlights fascinating global models, like the collaboration underway in Africa. The Anthropic Chidi Learning Companion is scaling up AI education rapidly in countries like Rwanda. It's part of their ambitious National Vision 2050 strategy.
So they're trying to leapfrog old infrastructure.
Exactly. To quickly build an AI-ready workforce across entire regions, focusing on digital literacy and practical modern computational skills.
The research also highlights a fascinating development in higher education, something we're calling the platformization of academia.
Yeah, this is where you see a very rapid convergence between traditional universities and big tech companies.
It's arguably the most significant structural change in university operations in decades.
We are seeing strategic, multi-million-dollar partnerships forming between major universities like Purdue and the University of Kansas, and hyperscalers like Google and AWS. And the explicit aim of these partnerships is to make working competency with specific proprietary AI stacks like the Google Cloud ecosystem, a de facto graduation requirement for many degrees.
So the university degree doesn't just represent abstract knowledge anymore. It increasingly represents vendor certification in the tools you need to compete in the job market right now.
It's a fundamental shift in the value proposition of a university education. It aligns education directly with immediate corporate needs.
It's a rapid realignment.
It is. The student who is deemed future-proofed is increasingly the one who graduates with a validated certification in the proprietary tools of a specific hyperscaler.
And the universities see the anxiety, they see the demand from employers, and they're adapting.
They're becoming specialized training and certification grounds. And they are, quite successfully, monetizing this transition anxiety by offering these high-value credentialing programs for current executives.
Like those executive programs we saw in the research.
Precisely. Carnegie Mellon University, a leader in AI, for example, introduced a premium Chief Data and AI Officer certificate. It's priced at nearly $18,000 for a relatively short program.
Wow.
These are executive education products targeting senior leaders who fear being rendered obsolete by the younger AI-fluent generation.
So universities are capitalizing on this urgent need to adapt.
It confirms that continuous, specialized learning is now a massive, highly monetizable market.
But beneath all the rapid adoption and these lucrative certifications, there are profound ethical and equity challenges. It highlights a critical ethical divide in learning.
The UNESCO report on this is a major warning siren we can't ignore. It explicitly emphasizes the global AI divide. While students in tech-rich nations get free access to advanced, personalized AI tutors, the report starkly notes that 1 in 3 people globally still lack the necessary foundational connectivity, basic internet, reliable electricity to access any of these new AI learning tools.
That is structural exclusion on a massive scale.
It is.
If these AI tools are becoming the gateway to the future economy, then over 2 billion people are already being left behind before they can even start.
And that disparity is why these ethical guardrails and global equity discussions are so crucial right now. Global policy dialogues are emphasizing the need for transparency in AI curriculum, for bias-free training data, and for robust protection of student privacy.
Right.
The consensus, particularly from leaders at the WISE Summit, is that AI integration must foster creativity and critical thinking, not just technical prowess or outsourcing learning to a machine. The goal is to avoid what they call detaching knowledge from ethics.
This issue of structural exclusion, this AI divide, is the perfect bridge to our next section, which deals with the core economic consequence of abundance. If AI generates massive, unprecedented wealth and lowers production costs, how do we effectively distribute that prosperity?
The research confirms the urgent, immediate need for new economic models.
The consensus is that this rapid shift to abundance economics forces a complete structural rethink of the social contract, especially taxation and welfare.
Absolutely. If machines produce the vast majority of output, But our tax systems rely heavily on taxing human labor and wages. The entire fiscal foundation of the modern welfare state starts to collapse.
So what's the alternative?
Policymakers are confirming active discussions around concepts like robot taxes, schemes designed to tax the output generated by AI or high-profit algorithms. The idea is to use that revenue to fund social programs if the human labor share of national income continues its accelerating decline.
And this is no longer just theoretical debate in academic journals.
Not at all. The data shows policymakers are moving swiftly to practical, real-world policy experiments, specifically in the realm of universal basic income, UBI, used as transition capital.
And the most powerful case study here comes from Cook County, Illinois.
Yeah, they just made their targeted guaranteed basic income program permanent. After a positive, rigorous 2-year pilot delivering $500 a month to specific low-income families, the county board approved $7.5 million to continue it.
And the pilot showed significant results, right? Not just in financial stability.
Right, but in psychological well-being. The research indicates the funds were used for essentials, food, stable housing, rent, and participants reported markedly improved mental health scores compared to the control group.
So it's acting as a preventative social medicine.
And crucially, this is why policymakers are starting to view UBI not as some utopian dividend for a post-work future, but as necessary transition capital.
An income floor.
An income floor designed to help workers survive the intense economic churn and income volatility of mass reskilling. We're seeing similar UBI pilots in Minneapolis, Compton, California, and even a groundbreaking proposal in Manchester, UK. They're all aiming to provide stability during this chaotic transition.
But even with successful UBI pilots, the research highlights significant structural barriers to equity that this automation wave risks making much, much worse, particularly the persistent gender gap in long-term financial security.
The OECD's Pensions at a Glance report provides a really sobering counter-narrative here. It confirms the deep-seated gender pension gap persists, and is primarily driven by career interruptions, often for caregiving and long-term earnings disparities.
And since administrative and support roles, which are highly feminized employment sectors, are among the most exposed to this agentic displacement.
Exactly. This technological wave could severely exacerbate the long-term pension gap for millions of women. Without a fundamental redesign of pension credits and safety nets that actively value unpaid care work. The concern is a future where older women face disproportionately high poverty rates amidst a society generating immense technological wealth.
So the AI, if we're not careful, just scales and automates our existing entrenched biases.
Precisely.
Now, it's helpful to contrast this Western approach of UBI experiments with a completely different model, the model of digital public infrastructure, DPI.
The India Stack model provides a critical philosophical alternative, and its success is driving global policy interest.
So how does it work?
It's essentially about the state providing open, public digital rails for identity verification, data sharing, and immediate payments. It's being promoted as a path to sovereign abundance.
So the benefits aren't captured solely by private tech giants?
Exactly. The benefits are widely distributed across the entire population. It's a vision of abundance that is explicitly public, not proprietary. It directly counters that winner-take-all dynamic.
This tension between a technology that creates wealth faster than ever and legacy social systems failing to distribute it is the central friction point. And that brings us to our final discussion on the cultural, political, and ethical dilemmas of this new age.
The research shows clearly that this era of generative abundance is causing profound cultural and political backlashes. The most immediate conflict, the one that touches almost everyone, is around creativity and ownership, the cultural backlash to generative abundance.
And the battleground for this is currently intense in the UK, with what artists are calling the copyright wars.
At the heart of it is the government's proposed text and data mining exception. This would allow large AI companies to scrape vast quantities of copyrighted work art, literature, music for training their models.
Unless the individual artists explicitly take the complex steps to opt out.
Which flips the burden of proof entirely onto the creator.
It forces them to fight to defend their work from being assimilated into the machine.
Right. And high-profile protests highlight the fundamental existential question here. Who owns the raw material of intelligence and creativity in the age of generative models?
Because if human creative output is just treated as a free resource for AI companies to mine and profit from, it risks collapsing the entire economic model for the cultural economy.
And beyond culture, Political systems are demonstrably struggling to keep pace, which is leading to some truly fascinating and, frankly, unsettling political and governance spectacles.
The most surreal yet telling example documented by our team is the Albania case study. The appointment of an AI system named Diela as the Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence.
An AI minister.
Yeah, tasked specifically with combating corruption.
That sounds like something straight out of a satirical science fiction novel.
It certainly does, and critics have framed this as the Avatarization of Politics, where accountability for deeply human systemic failures like corruption is masked behind algorithmic opacity.
So you're delegating this complex ethical problem to an AI system. The state attempts to depoliticize failure, suggesting technology can unilaterally solve political incompetence or moral failure.
It illustrates the high-stakes dangers of techno-solutionism, where we embrace an algorithmic mirage instead of fixing broken human institutions.
And finally, we have to address the non-technical hurdles, the fundamental adoption barriers and trust issues that threaten to slow this whole thing down.
Trust is paramount, and it's currently scarce. The research confirms a deep public skepticism. Over 80% of Americans are disgustful of the current leadership guiding AI development.
And when the core technology driving transformation is met with such overwhelming public distrust, adoption inevitably slows down. People don't want to use tools they don't understand or trust.
And coupled with that deep distrust is the painful paradox of the reskilling gap we talked about at the very beginning of Tomorrow Unveiled.
The paradox persists. Only 12% of global employees feel they receive sufficient high-quality AI training from their employers, even as those same employers desperately need AI-fluent workers.
So companies are hesitant to invest in training until the demand is clear.
But workers can't get the skills because of that hesitation. This simultaneous skill shortage and high anxiety is maybe the biggest internal hurdle to realizing the promised productivity gains.
You can't automate away human friction.
And that brings us back squarely to the consensus reached at the WISE Summit and corroborated throughout all the research: the need for human centricity.
It's the foundational, non-negotiable point.
It is. Human welfare, ethics, and genuine creativity have to remain central to the deployment strategy. We have to ensure AI tools don't entrench existing biases or undermine the essential human processes of exploration and learning. We have to actively preserve our core humanity, our curiosity, our morality, even as we embrace and deploy these powerful new tools.
We have seen today on Tomorrow Unveiled that the future is not arriving gradually. It is arriving faster, harder, and more structurally than we anticipated.
The research from our dedicated team confirms the transition is structural, global, and highly uneven in its effects.
We've analyzed the staggering scale of workforce replacement potential, the geopolitical infrastructure race, and the struggle of our social systems to adapt. The key takeaway for you, our listener, is profound. Future-proofing your skills, your business, and your community is no longer optional. It's an immediate imperative.
And to synthesize these findings into actionable insights, let's look at two key trajectories to watch. For work, expect the transition to accelerate dramatically. The research suggests the next 2 years will be the definitive year of the agent, where AI moves from just chatting to actively doing, replacing administrative, QA, and operational layers across massive companies.
So your priority has to be continuous education.
Continuous education and doubling down on adaptable, uniquely human-centric skills. Empathy, complex problem-solving, and crucially, governance, the ability to supervise and manage autonomous systems.
And for policy and society.
Keep a close watch on the expansion of UBI trials, like the one in Cook County, and the political discussions around new tax models, like taxes on AI-driven output. They're all designed to manage the growing gap between productivity gains and human labor income.
And global coordination on ethical frameworks, infrastructure, that will determine whether this leads to shared prosperity or deeper division.
Speed is the defining variable now. We have to match the institutional speed of our governments and education systems to the relentless pace of technological innovation.
The greatest challenge facing us isn't whether technology delivers this promised abundance. The infrastructure build-out, the scientific compression, the cost reductions, they're all on track to deliver it.
The true test for society is psychological, political, and philosophical. If AI allows the massive wealth creation currently predicted, will we collectively use that prosperity to redefine the social purpose of work, ensuring meaning and stability for everyone? Or will we simply allow a future where a small group works extreme, high-stress hours while millions are left searching for meaning and stability on the margins of a technologically rich world?
That fundamental question of shared meaning and the distribution of prosperity is the challenge that will define the next decade. This has been a comprehensive exploration on Tomorrow Unveiled. If you're listening on a podcast service like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It truly helps us reach new listeners and keeps this conversation going. Thank you for joining us as we continue to unveil tomorrow.